Today's subject is security, and I know security is very important, and I also know that security is sometimes boring, and it's a cost of doing business, I guess, and so I'm going to try and pack things up, not too much, but hopefully you enjoy it. So first off, I'm Luca. I've been at Platform.sh for 7 years almost. I think it's next week. I used to do technical pre-sales, but I used to be ops before that. So I used to be networks and system engineer. The thing I love the most, and this is something I love about Platform in general, is that you can find weird workarounds that are technically correct and kind of weird always. So today I'm going to talk about security on your frameworks, the code and customizations that you are going to bring, of course, the infrastructure itself, and then the security and you, which is, I think, the most important part, one of the most important parts. So I'll start with the frameworks, and the first slide is just updates. I know it's a given. Usually you're like, oh yeah, I have to do it, but maybe you put it to tomorrow, maybe not today, maybe it's not an emergency, maybe there's not like a CV, maybe keep things up to date. I think it is very, very important to keep things up to date as much as you can. And when I say things, I mean like there's a lot of things that you can keep up to date. The package manager of the operating system, if you use one, or you probably use one, the PHP version, the major version and the minor versions, of course, Composer and the dependencies and Node, if you use it. So, and of course, like all the things around it, I can't list everything, but keep things up to date. I think it's the easiest security practice you can bring to your application, to your infrastructure, is just updating. There's a lot of tools that can help. I put top grade at the top because it's top grade, but it is an automated, like it checks everything and just updates everything. It is kind of risky because you're updating everything, but it allows you to just see like, oh yeah, I forgot this, because you have like so many little things to update all the time and to keep in mind. Top grade actually keeps that in mind for you, and you can like, configure it and say like, forget about this one, and so you're back to the problem of like you're not updating enough. You have automated dependency scans, and Composer outdated can help as well. There's similar tools in whatever you use. So if you use Node, there's also dependency checkers. Protecting endpoints is a big one as well. Don't hide, threaten. I've seen that. Like my admin is admin 7, so everything is under control. It's not enough, of course. Like security through obscurity, I don't think it is a bad thing, but it is clearly not enough. So yeah, protect from path traversal. It's usually made during the web server, at the web server level, where path traversal is very bad, and people can try and get like from the directory above and then back to another one and get your like credentials and .env and stuff like that. It's very easy to do. Try to rate limit endpoints. I'm not putting a list here because it would not be a very good list, but stuff like search and things like that typically aren't cached, they can be rate limited, and sometimes it can help tremendously to rate limit stuff. You can also rate limit 404s, for example, because a scanner would like scan your whole application and then try weird things. You can rate limit 404s. Consider a WAF. A web application firewall can be a great asset to protect your website before the request reaches your website. There's many different kinds of WAFs. We bundle one with Platform, Ibexa Cloud, I should say. And then there's like more advanced, more, you can go very in-depth with WAFs. I think the most interesting ones are automated, and now we have like very good fully automated WAFs, and we'll talk about it later. Caching, I just talked about caching, but if you cache Too little, it is bad for performance. If you cache too much, you're serving personalized content to users that are not logged in or something like that. This is something we see not often and not usually on Ibexa because Ibexa has a very, very good VCL and cache policies. Vidar actually has a talk about this, but go to Guillaume's talk instead of Vidar's. But I'm still putting it here that there's going to be a very interesting talk about cache and VCL. But yeah, Ibexa has like a very good framework to automate most things, and it works on Varnish because VCL is Varnish at its core, but there's also a Fastly version if you use Fastly. Now I'm going to go to your code and customizations because, of course, you're not just installing Ibexa, you're installing your Ibexa application. There's tokens. You've all seen that one. You're not using that one, right? You're not, huh? Make sure you store tokens in the environment as much as you can. Never store them in the repository. I know it sounds like a given, but yeah, we see that sometimes. And then you push it to GitHub, and then everyone has your token. So tokens are a very integral part in security in general. And yeah, change it. It says it in the token. Change it. Test your code. It's also security. There's a lot of tools available, like too many to list. It's like the MarTech thing yesterday where you had like 150 and then like 10,000, and then it's the same for code testing, it seems. So static analysis tools, but also automated scanners, automated pen tests, people-made pen tests, which are also very good. Bug bounties. I saw one yesterday where their tagline is "pay a reward, not a ransom," and that's an amazing tagline, I think. And then I'm going to talk about Blackfire because Blackfire is very good, and well, it's a platform, so it's easy for me to say. But Blackfire will actually look into your code and give recommendations, not just security, but also security. So use Blackfire if you can. And again, on the bug bounties thing, encourage disclosure. There's like white hat hackers. I don't know if they're called white hat still, but responsible hackers that are going to check your website and then send you an email. I put the security.txt here. It's a very good way to let hackers know, yes, I'm willing to receive emails about security and security holes and security issues that you can find, and then reward them. If you're not rewarding them, then they're going to reward themselves by just disclosing or using your data, which is obviously very bad. So again, pay the reward, not the ransom. It's not mine, but it's very good. Escaping content is also a big thing in your application. Obviously, this is not something you want. This is the XKCD joke that I stole, but I think it's still very nice and very relevant today. Escaping content, making sure that you never trust user input. It's even on the simple things like providing a username or something. There's always a way to break something. Never trust user input. The Symfony validator is amazing at this. Always escape everything and check user uploads. I think the next slide, hopefully, going to the infrastructure, but the user uploads are also a big thing. Is that I'm almost sure that, I'll change the order. But your user uploads should be separate from the PHP application because this is also something that you can see where someone uploads a PHP file and then it is executed, and of course, it all gets very bad. So never trust user input. Going to the infrastructure then. A firewall is, you have to have one now. It comes default, but of course the rule is to expose as little as you can. So typically you would have like a HTTP, HTTPS, and maybe SSH host. Use strong passwords for everything else. As soon as it is internet facing, use encryption, even HTTP versus HTTPS, and then I have a slide later, but use encryption for everything. It should be a given, and then automated blocking for example, bad IPs. There's very good databases of bad IPs, bad actors, bad ranges, and then fail to bad, which is it checks your logs and then blocks people that are trying too many times. Again, going back to the 404s, stuff like that, where a bad actor can try things, and you have to make sure that they can go too many times. HTTPS, back on encryption again. Consider HSTS, which is a header that tells the browsers that you don't serve HTTP, you always want to redirect to HTTPS. Don't use old versions of TLS, so I'm putting TLS 1.3 here. The key strength is important, and you can test your certificates through SSL Labs, or if you want to try it locally, there's a very good script that is test SSL. This is the output for upsun.com. And it actually gives you like a score that you can brag about at the end of the thing, which is, pretty fancy, pretty nice. And yeah, so try it, it's local. So this is the slide I wanted to put before. The scripts, your application is a script. It is run every time there's a page that is requested, but remember your pictures, your JavaScript, these aren't scripts. So check for separation, check for static pages, static content should never be able to be executed. Else you will have like big problems with uploads. So always make sure that it is impossible to execute PHP code in the upload, for example, static content directory. Strive for read-only wherever you can. This is something that is harder to achieve, in my opinion, but if you can have everything read-only, it is the best. As much read-only as you can. And this is actually one of the things that we have with Ibexa Cloud, is that everything is read-only, but the things that you decide should be read and write. And this is a huge security advantage, because if someone, a bad actor, manages to bypass all of the securities that you had before, they aren't able to change your application itself. Because again, you yourself could not do it. Backups are security. I know you've all heard about backups, and everyone talks about backups, but yeah, take them, test them. This is the most important one, test them. I know a lot of people that have a lot of backups and they have like a retention policy and they have never tested them. And so once everything explodes, well, do we have a backup? Yes. Can we restore it? Let's try it. And then it doesn't work, and then it's very, very awkward for everyone. So yeah, take them, test them, keep them, retention policies and stuff. Restore them, hopefully not, but it's important. Follow the 3-2-1 rule. So it's 3 copies of your data on 2 different mediums, and one has to be offsite always. So change regions if you use a cloud provider, for example, push it to another cloud provider. That's the best. Yeah, and then encryption all the way. Always encrypt everything. Data, I talked about HTTPS, so that's in transit, but data at rest has to be encrypted as well. Disaster recovery, it's part of security as well, and just like comes back to the backup thing. When it happens, it's not if, it's when. What do we lose? How did we lose it? Can we get back online very fast? And then write RCAs. Even internally, I think it's a very good practice to have RCAs, even though they feel boring to write. And again, I'm saying that during a talk about security. So they feel boring to write, but RCAs are actually very valuable because then you don't make the same mistakes twice. Having to actually think about the issue and write it down, you're like, oh, this is actually pretty bad. Like, should we do it like this? No. So RCAs are very important. Security in you, you're the problem. And I'm sorry to tell you that, but yeah, I like this picture. It's a desire path, is how I learned it's called. Security is usually a compromise. And you have to compromise. You could, like, the best security I often say is like to unplug everything. But if you unplug everything, then everything is secure, but your application is not running. Everything is a compromise, and passwords is also a compromise. So passwords are too short, it's very bad. Too long, people are not going to want to think about them. So consider helping users, for example, like tell them, this is something I've never seen, but I wish I did. Like on login pages, like when you create your account, hey, consider using Bitwarden or something to store your passwords. And then maybe users will use them more. I use it because I'm weird like that, but there's a lot of people that just don't know about them and the great security benefits that they bring. So, and passkeys, use passkeys as an alternative. It's newer, but it's like SSH where you have like a public key and a private key, and then you forget about the password concept. So there's nothing to know, there's nothing to forget, and there's nothing to steal. Oh, there's things to steal. Choose your users, especially for Ibexa, where you often have websites of where the content is shared between users and you have editors and stuff like that. Choose your users. Do you need that many admins? Do they all need to have all the access? Maybe not. Do editors need that many permissions? Do you have a user cleanup policy where every 6 months you go back to your users and, oh, this one is gone, this one is like they're moved to another one, to another role, so they don't need that many permissions. Because it's easy to give users permissions because they complain if they don't have the permissions. But they never complain if they have too much because either they don't notice or maybe they use it. Have a cleanup policy. Access management is also a big part. Don't use root for anything. If you can help it, never use root. Log everything if you can as well. Hopefully export the logs, because if everything goes according to plan, you don't need to read the logs, but sometimes you do. And if they're on-prem, if they're like on the machine that executes everything, then you lose the machine, you lose the logs, and someone could like potentially, like a bad actor that could connect to your machine could also change the logs. So push them as soon as you can to somewhere else that is secure. Check and clean up processes, again. Make sure that you remove users that should not be allowed to have access anymore. And each user should have their own access. I've seen that 1,000 times where they have like IT at something, like their IT at company, and then they all use the same user. And then who did that change? Who like connected that day? Who knows? They are under one user, and that's bad. So use one access per user. That's what I mean. More access management. I know you were not bored. Use two-factor authentication for everything. It's easier and easier to get everything behind 2FA. And if you can use solutions like Okta, stuff like that, then you have 2FA, you have SSO. Avoid passwords wherever you can. This is back to the previous point. Passwords are typically bad and badly implemented, and post-it notes and stuff like that. Avoid passwords if you can. Everyone's affected. The users are the weakest link. If someone clicks on a link and then they're logged into your website and then they give their ID or something to another website, then you lose everything. It's not on you. It's not you as the developer that can actually fix that, but you can help. No one is immune. Train your team. Train your users. I see a lot of training for the teams, the technical IT teams, but the users usually they're not like as trained. And I know sometimes you're an agency, you can really tell the customer like, oh, by the way, take care of this. But that doesn't cost you to talk about this. Security never stops. I considered saying security never sleeps, but update yourself. So there's like security advisories, CVEs. I know it's boring because it's a lot of text, but it's important to see what's going on, what's happening, and to be warned when there's like a problem on the stack you use. And I know the stack you use, there's probably like 10, 15 components. It's a lot, but it's so important. educate everyone, and write and review processes. If there's I talked about this a bit earlier, but when there's a security issue that you detect, then you can either use a WAF to have like I would call it workaround, because technically the request does not reach your server, so it's not like a security problem, but it's not an actual fix, it's a workaround. If someone figures out how to go around the WAF, which I hope they don't, but maybe they do, then always actually patching your application, long-term patching. This is a quote from Futurama. I know it's a second Futurama joke, I'm sorry. But the problem with security and why it is a boring subject, it's because if you do everything right, then you haven't done anything. Like that's the problem. It's exactly like backups, like stuff like that. It is invisible to your users. They don't care. They're like, yeah, they can use the application. And then once you have a security issue, then they can't use the application, and then they're unhappy. It's a thankless job-ish, security, but it's a very important one. A word about Ibexa Cloud. That's, I have to. But Ibexa Cloud is a very, very good solution for a lot of things I mentioned. It will not help the users, will not help the application itself, although there's a lot of workarounds and stuff that we actually provide directly. But yeah, it includes a lot of the presentation, the backups, the retention, the access, the SSO, all of that is included. It is already in. Everything is read-only by default, and you can say like, oh, this directory has to be read and write. And by default, it says like, oh, if this is read and write, then no scripts in there. You can force it to, I wouldn't advise it to. But yeah, everything is up to date by default. You can, of course, choose the version of PHP you use, for example, the major version, but the minor versions, we are going to release them as soon as they come out so that you can use them right away. We have a lot of compliance certifications, and we have a trust center that lists them all. And you can have 24/7 security escalations. That's also the security never sleeps angle. If you handle security in-house, then you have to wake someone up. And waking someone up is never fun. So we have 24/7 security escalations as well. Yep, that's it. Thank you very much. And if you have questions, please.
Any questions to Luca?
All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.